This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com. This is my weekly review of the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter, which there's lots of stuff I don't cover in it that if you really want to know all the details, grab the newsletter yourself. But I'll jump right into it because there's a lot of news this week. The newsletter actually only came a few hours ago. It was late this week. Let's go into the AEW news since it was a big week for AEW last week. Of course, Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, real name Austin Jenkins, Ruby Soho, and Minoru Suzuki. I'm not really familiar with the other last two. We're all unannounced surprises at AEW's All Out. September 5th from the Now Arena in Chicago. The main critique of the show, which was well received overall, was the match finishes were predictable with no surprise outcomes. In other words, everyone won that people assumed were going to win, despite the surprise appearances. Most people did figure that Danielson and Cole were going to appear sometime in September. And a lot of people believe that Ric Flair will be appearing very soon in AEW as well. The exact pay-per-view numbers aren't in, but they have more than 205,000 buys accounted for right now, which is great. Last year, they only did 115,000. As far as total revenue from the gate, it did beat, I guess, WCW's February 21, 1999 Super Brawl event in Oakland for the non-WWE domestic best gross sales. That one had Hogan versus Flair, generated 14.1 million and 7.45 million in company revenue from pay-per-view, live gates, and merchandise. So we don't have the final numbers for AEW, but it's going to beat that WCW pay-per-view. Although we have to take into account that WCW pay-per-view was in 1999, which is like 22, 23 years ago, where the dollar value is different than it is today, and things, especially ticket prices, are a lot more today. So if you're going by straight figures, yes. The AEW show was an immediate sellout with 10,164 fans, 9,000 of which paid 700,000. So that's pretty good. That is the largest gate they've had in company history, although Dave Meltzer believes their September 22nd Dynamite taping from Arthur Ashe Stadium in the New York area will break it. You know what? Who wants to see me go to that? I'm actually going to be in New Jersey around that time, but you know what? I don't think I want to hang out an extra day or two to go to that. But I am going to be in New Jersey on the 20th. The United Center show actually had 6,000 more paid fans in the building. That was the Rampage debut of CM Punk, but ticket prices were lower, so the Rampage gate was only 635,000. Still phenomenal. For Adam Cole, apparently he said he had already made his decision that he was going to go to AEW last December, and he didn't know that his contract was expiring early. He was expecting it to expire this December, but due to some mix-up, it actually expired much earlier, and WWE actually had to sign a special 2-month extension with him because he was in the middle of a program. And I guess it was this Canyon Seaman who, it was his oversight why they were still pushing him in a main program with his contract expiring. And it's believed that that's the reason why Canyon Seaman was fired, either all his mistake or he was made the scapegoat. Bryan Danielson's WWE contract expired April 30th. Roman Reigns beat him in his last match. He was given a major offer to stay, and he got a very similar offer from AEW. No exact figures announced. Good move for Danielson to switch for sure, in my opinion, because Meltzer's writing here about Roman Reigns, but I can't even remember. Like, I don't obviously watch the product, but I pay attention to who's in the main events and stuff, and I literally can't even remember the last time Bryan Danielson was in a memorable program in WWE. So he was a fish in a pond in WWE, but he's a big fish in the AEW pond. This is cool for everyone that thinks I don't like AEW. I think this is cool. They're going to start doing the dark tapings at Universal Studios in Orlando, back where the WCW Worldwide tapings and TNA tapings used to happen. They're going to start shooting that today, September 11th. The show is going to be free with Universal Studios patrons getting in for free. So these tapings that they were having where they were doing like Dark and Elevation and Dynamite tapings all in the same day, that's like sometimes 5-6 hours of wrestling. Who can take that much? Like, I mean, I'm trying to think of what I love, and to do something that you love for 5 or 6 hours or just watch it. I don't know. I don't know if I love anything that much. Who knows? I do like working out, but not for 6 hours. I do like having fun sometimes, but I don't know about 6 hours. Actually, maybe there is some things I'd like to do for 6 hours. Take that back. But they're not something that I do in front of an audience. WWE news. They've closed down their Japanese and UK companies. This does not mean that the UK brand is shutting down, just the holdings companies in Japan and UK. So it's just procedural. NXT UK is still going to be around. I will do a separate video on this, maybe another time this weekend, because it's very detailed and I've read it in numerous sources. But Jonathan Coachman, who I don't know if he still works for ESPN or not, but last I checked, he did. He has lashed out against Vince McMahon and WWE, claiming he had a bounce check and suffered hazing throughout his time in WWE, particularly a couple incidents. It's no secret there was hazing in WWE in the early 2000s. I will be perfectly honest. I would have gotten through that hazing as Jonathan Coachman did. Some people didn't last. It got to some people. Others it didn't. But there was hazing at all levels. And like even at Deep South in the development territory, where I guess if I had been paid, I would have lasted longer. But there was like weird treatment of wrestlers, even in the development programs back then. But it's different when you're getting paid dealing with that and when you're not getting paid dealing with that. But the only reason when I was harassed by a few wrestlers, not harassed, but let's just say a few of them pissed me off, why I didn't beat them up was because I didn't want to ruin my chances with WWE. And I wasn't getting paid. Not that they were bullying me, but they did. I had a few things done to me that I would actually beat the crap out of people for in other situations. So yes, that's just part of the backstage environment. Although from what I understand, it's a little better now, but there's still a lot of politics. But there's not as much hazing and in-ring beatings as there used to be. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, reportedly earned $50 million for doing the movie Red One for Amazon. $50 million for one movie. Good for him. You cannot argue he is the most successful wrestler of all time. No other wrestler can make $50 million for one job. And I've said this before. The Rock is still the best draw in wrestling. If you still want to consider him a wrestler, there's nobody that could fill the arena where the Ottawa Senators play in my town. I think it's called Canadian Tire Center now, holds about 19,000 fans for wrestling. The only person that could sell that out is The Rock. There's no other wrestler alive today that could sell that arena out if it was even just a house show. I'm not saying if they didn't put WrestleMania on in there, it wouldn't draw, but The Rock is the biggest draw as a wrestler. That's why WWE wants him for WrestleManias. I mean, you can say Lesnar and Cena are draws, but Cena was only drawing like 6,000 or 7,000 people to most of the house shows from the results I read when he was headlining, which is great for today's standards, but it's not what The Rock could pull off. Continue on with this. Gable Stevenson, the Olympic gold medalist at heavyweight, signed with WWE. There was no offer from UFC. Apparently, they wanted him to fight on smaller shows first and see how he did, and then put him on Dana White's Contenders series. Dana also said in an interview recently, as my mouth is drying out and I forgot water, that he thinks the fighters are listening to media too much, saying that they're underpaid. When in reality, UFC is making a lot of money, and the fighters, for all the brain damage they're going through, are not making that much. Meltzer brings up here that WWE is doing much better than AEW on YouTube. I don't think anyone can ever touch WWE. They have so much footage, and they've been at YouTube since practically the start. They're one of the top YouTube groups out there. And I see, there's things I like and there's things I don't like about Dave Meltzer, but overall, I still like him as a person. But I will disagree. Like, he puts a little shot at WWE here because he mentions that WWE is considered the gold standard on how YouTube monetizes. But they bring up that WWE has a high percentage of its views from India, which are considered worthless to advertisers, with the idea that the people aren't spending money on the products advertised. Well, what does that have to do with how much money WWE is making? I can tell you they are making massive, massive money on YouTube. Absolutely incredible money on YouTube. And I don't like Jim Cornette. We all know this, and I'm not going to go on a tirade on him. But some people that buy into his trife that he's a great booker, even though he hasn't had any success as a booker, since Smoky Mountain Wrestling wasn't even his own money, and he put it out of business. Never lasted that long in the major leagues as a booker. But some people say, well, why is he being wasted? Why isn't he working for one of these companies writing? Do you guys have any idea how much he makes on YouTube alone, let alone t-shirt sales, let alone Cameo, let alone whatever his podcast advertisers pay him? It would not surprise me at all if he's making close to $1 million a year, if you add all that up. People have no idea what social media money is these days. Wasn't it Renee Young that came out a couple years ago? She made $600,000 on Instagram. Not Renee Young. What the hell is it? Miro's wife, Lana. Lana made $600,000 in a year just from Instagram. So the WWE's writer pay, if they were to hire Cornette, it wouldn't be nearly as much as he makes just sitting in his house and doing his podcast, not having to leave. We all know he doesn't like flying places. He's got a lot of enemies. There's always a potential someone's going to beat him up for his insults that he likes to throw at people, especially the under the belt ones. So why would he want to take less pay and put effort into something that he's not going to make as much money as, and he's going to have someone above him when he can just be his own boss and make a fortune? So anyways, I'm just saying, I don't know why Meltzer had to bring up that advertisers consider Indian views worthless, because it doesn't affect how much money WWE is actually getting from those views. They're getting a lot of money. And by the way, we do have a lot of India views on a lot of the matches on this channel, and that's why at the recent Great North Wrestling tapings, I made sure to have an India flag up, and I did actually have a Texas flag up, or I bought one for it. But unfortunately, I got too busy and didn't realize that it wasn't put up. So in future events, I will make sure Texas is represented. But we did have the United States flag there. Of course, I am most viewed in the United States, and I really appreciate my American viewers. I wish I could live there full time in a state like Arizona, maybe one day. Mick Foley took some shots at WWE this week and praised AEW, basically saying he thinks WWE has a problem. And I've already put out a video on this where he's saying WWE has less momentum and stuff now than AEW. That might be true as far as AEW is considered the more cool product. But that's because they have WWE guys jumping over. Eventually, AEW people will jump to WWE, and then WWE is going to be more interesting. Trust me. Let's just use Cody Rhodes as an example. If WWE wanted to throw a lot of money at him when his contract expires to jump, do you not think that would make a lot of news? Or one of their young guys, like who's one of their young over guy, Orange Cassidy. He's over with the AEW fans when he goes to WWE. Or Darby Allin, even though both of these guys have zero appeal to me. Like, the AEW fans will be popping if they were to switch, and then they would watch it WWE for a while, as much as they don't want to admit it. So WWE will be able to take some of these guys back. Trust me, with all these WWF guy or WWE guys coming in, they're taking away spots from AEW. They can act happy all they want, but some of these guys that were starting to get noticed are now being pushed down the card. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with guys like Brian Cage and Wardlow when their contracts come up and WWE makes them offers. So, Meltzer brings up that Dewey Foley, who's one of Mick Foley's kids, is actually on the WWE creative team. Now, we know that the Warrior's wife, Dana Warrior, was and possibly still is on the WWE creative team. What are the qualifications now? You just have to be related to a former WWE Hall of Famer? Is that it? Maybe they should hire Jenny Santana too. She certainly seems qualified as Tito Santana's kid. But what does Dewey Foley know about drawing? What will draw ratings? What will draw people to go to the shows, the live shows? I don't know. I really don't know. I know nothing about Dewey Foley other than the name from his first book. But I'm just find it interesting that they're hiring young people like that and giving them jobs in WWE. That's one of the reasons why WWE has bad creative. I don't know why they don't just keep a smaller number of creative people that actually have a track record of being great bookers. I really don't know. Raw and Dynamite both did a 0.52 rating this week. NXT did a 0.14. Rampage did a 0.3. Impact did a 0.03. SmackDown did a 0.62. In other wrestling news, this is a great story. Al Snow, 58 now, saved a drowning child's life on September 9th. The child was being pulled into a riptide, and he saved the kid. So great job, Al Snow. There's 3 interviews with him on this channel. My match versus him is on this channel. There's tons of Al Snow teaching footage on this channel. Great guy. More good news. Former TNA announcer Don West, who's been battling brain cancer, is in remission. He said after 8 weeks of chemotherapy and 13 radiation treatments, his cancer is in remission. Good to hear. Cancer is real bad. Real bad. I've had many personal experiences with it, and it's not fun. Finally, I already reported this, but Meltzer reported it too. He says, according to the Texas Controller's website, SWE Fury, the promotion that Lacey Von Erich recently took over and has been plagued by multiple no-shows the last few cards, is now legally defunct as an organization in the state of Texas. And by the way, anyone from SWE Fury that wants to be a man or be a respectable person and follow through with the deal that they agreed to, give me my money and footage back that you still owe me, which I don't expect of you guys because you're scumbags, but feel free. I'm going to write all about you in my book and the real deal stuff. If you want to treat me like crap, like you've treated all the wrestlers like crap, like you've treated the fans like crap, false advertising people and so forth. But for now, you don't deserve any more airtime on here. You're out of business. That's the last I'll say for now. Wayne wishes me good morning from Dublin, home of the Leprechaun from the Leprechaun movies. Great movies, particularly the first one with Jennifer Aniston. Thank you to Real Nick. Charles likes that there's another place for the wrestlers to go. I do agree with that. Pedro. What do I think about reports that WWE and AEW don't want to hire Tessa Blanchard? I don't know. I know she's trained at the AEW training facility. I don't know if she's put that much of an effort into wrestling on the independent scene. There's some controversy with her. I think the only thing that's going to help her get over those controversies is to go out there and have good matches and make people want to see her in those major leagues more, because now she's been off TV for like a year and a half, I think. I don't think she's still the reigning Impact champion. As far as I'm concerned, she's the undefeated Impact champion. And I actually do think she could beat Christian in a real fight. Actually, no, I don't know about that. I'm just joking with Christian. I know Christian probably wouldn't want to put her over. But Tessa does great on this channel. She used to be PCW champion, and there's a bunch of Tessa Blanchard matches on this channel from PCW. And speaking of PCW, their October 23rd event is almost sold out. But they also announced their anniversary event, January 28th, that Stan Hansen is going to be there. So that's pretty cool. Am I going to the Cotillion for the World Class Pro Wrestling event in October? Yes, I will be covering that October 3rd. And yeah, the World Class Pro Wrestling, right now they have plans to run Southern Junction in the Dallas area every month starting in December. Pete says, check out the Arthur Ashe show. Yeah, I wasn't thinking straight. I'm not going to stay 2 extra days in New Jersey for that. Bogey wishes AEW would hire me. I do think I would do good interviews because I am the most popular shoot interviewer on the internet. And if they would give me the leeway to still do my own stuff, I would do interviews for them, career interviews. But I know Cody Rhodes doesn't like me. I don't know what Chris Jericho's feelings are on me. But I'm doing just fine on my own, thanks to you fans supporting me. And I'm actually really happy in my life. Holy believes that AEW needs a stronger foundation. Charles, the new 6:05 WCW Saturday night. I don't know about that. Alon says hazing was a big problem in WWE in the 2000s, particularly with Bill DeMott. Yeah. Bill DeMott was a weirdo. I'm sorry to say that. For the people that said he trained people hard, in some ways he did, but he was a weirdo. If it was just that he made people do a lot of squats, he would probably still have his job there. It was the weird stuff that people had issues with. So, whatever. Real Nick still wants me to beat up Cody, the American Chicken, Cody Rhodes. Bob agrees with me about The Rock being the biggest draw in wrestling. Pedro, UFC doesn't need Gable Stevenson. UFC is not, they're making a fortune. So from that standpoint, no. But interest isn't that high in UFC these days. One of the reasons is they can't keep the stars because they're not paying enough. So Holly is a big Jeff Jarrett fan. I don't know. I guess Jeff Jarrett's mad at me because of something his father said about me, about Jeff in the interview I did with his father, but I don't know how he can hold a grudge against me for that. MB says Jarrett burned all of his bridges with every company. Any chance of an interview with Rick Rude's possibly. I'd be up for it. Charles says I'm talking the truth. Louis says Cody Rhodes wouldn't jump because of an AEW office job. Anyone's going to jump for the right money. You make someone an offer they can't refuse, they're going to jump. WWE, who knows? They might sell in the next few years. But if you make someone an offer that they really can't refuse, they will jump. Now, I'm not saying Cody Rhodes would. I'm just using him as an example that if WWE, and they know this, trust me, if they get one of their popular wrestlers when their contract expires, it will help switch the tide as Piper's walking around down here. Not that like WWE is still making a fortune. Piper's going to say good night to everyone. I think she needs to go for a walk. Or good morning, because it's 5:04 in the morning. But I am a vampire in many ways, and I'm going to walk the dog out there in the dark. So good night from Piper and I. We wish you all a great weekend. Have a great night.